Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of You're Wrong, and Here's Why. I'm Chris Forwardell, joined by a very, very under the weather Gregory Crone. Gregory, how are you?
Battling through a haze of allergens, Chris. It's been a tough one.
Well, it sounds good. You sound good. You sound strong. And
I need like a warm cup of tea that I know isn't ever going to happen.
well, I like to think that I'm the human equivalent of a warm cup of tea, Greg. It's just I
Wow.
make people feel better.
Not the analogy that I would use for you, but I can see where people would think that.
I'm not sure that I would, but regardless of that lunacy, we are here to talk about why the Denver Nuggets are going to win the Northwest Division, why the NFC East is going to be decided this Sunday night, and why the Charlotte Hornets are going to finish with the worst record in the NBA. Let's kick this off. Let's get right into it. The Denver Nuggets going to win the Northwest. So I know this doesn't seem like, oh, what a shocking position to take, but I was looking over at Bovada Sportsbook, and I was shocked to find that the Denver Nuggets are not the favorites to win the Northwest. That honor belongs to the Utah Jazz. The Jazz at plus 120 and the Nuggets at plus 130 at Bovada. I know, close, but still not the favorites. And I don't know that this makes sense to me. I think maybe we're getting a little carried away with this Utah team. And I'll get back to them after I debunk the possibilities of any of these other teams winning the Northwest. But let's go to Oklahoma City. This is the epitome of a rebuilding team. You know, if there's a team that is going to challenge the Hornets, and we'll talk about this in that third segment, it's probably going to be the Thunder, assuming they make a series of trades.
You're out here stealing my third argument ammo in the first argument. I love it.
Look at this. That's going to be the show for this week. I remain undefeated. But no, the Thunder are certainly going to be in that position. I don't think it's I really don't think the Thunder's roster is terrible on paper right now. I just think that the roster that it's going to be, I don't know, by the trade deadline is going to be a significantly worse one. Right now you have Chris Paul and you have Gilgeous-Alexander, you have Gallinari, Andre Roberson, and Steven Adams. And look, I don't think it's crazy to say that if everything went right, that's a team that, they're in that, like, they could be in that 8, 9, 10 position in the Western Conference. Again, if everything, and I mean everything goes right, if Chris Paul finds the fountain of youth in Oklahoma City, if Roberson develops any sort of outside shot, and even if it's just a corner three, if Gallo stays healthy, because I do think Gallo is one of the more underrated players in all of basketball, and if Steven Adams isn't traded too early, it's a pretty good team. Are they going to win the Northwest? No, of course they're not going to win the Northwest. We go to the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team where Karl Anthony Towns keeps saying, "Hey, keep underrating us. That's fine. We're going to sneak up on teams." For all of the excitement that Cat might have about his roster, I don't share that enthusiasm. I don't get where this is coming from. He is one of the more skilled two-way players in basketball. Certainly one of the more skilled two-way big men. But Andrew Wiggins is a team killer, and I don't think a team can win paying all of that money to Wiggins. I like Culver and Josh Okogie at shooting guard. Point guards, whatever. Jeff Napier. Yeah, literally a combination of both their guards.
Jeff Teague and Shabazz.
Yeah, Jeff Napier, which is, actually, Shabazz Napier is kind of a poor man's Jeff Teague, so even combining them doesn't do all that much. Look, Teague he's a league average to slightly below average point guard. He is what he is at this point. Now, they do have the benefit of big bad Bob Covington at power forward. Broke my heart, Gregory. It broke my heart to see the Timberwolves-Pacers game this past week, where Robert Covington blocks T.J. McConnell, and then the two hug after the game. I will.
Two guys who should start on men's league teams and not NBA teams.
Look. TJ has earned his place as I believe, his third point guard in the NBA. He's probably going to be a second point guard Indiana, but great bench guy. Covington, you and I will never agree on, so I'm not even going to have this argument with you for a 15th time. But Covington, if you make an All NBA team, then you deserve to be in the NBA. And Covington has made that All NBA defensive team a couple of times, so I think that justifies his position in the league. Still, this is a team that is going to be fighting for the playoffs, not fighting for the Northwest Division. Portland's interesting. Portland's very interesting, and I also think Portland. I talked about Oklahoma City earlier. I think Portland is an outstanding landing spot if Oklahoma City decides to trade Danilo Gallinari. Adding Gallo to a Portland team with CJ and Dame Lil, the great rapper, it opens up a ton of opportunities for that offense to really take flight. Now Gallo's not there right now. This Portland team is still very good. It's a team that has shown the benefits of roster continuity. These guys stay together. The core stays together. They're comfortable playing with each other, and every year they just get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, and they're really hard out when the playoffs come. But somebody would have to take a big leap for them to challenge for the Northwest, or there would have to be injuries to one of the top, significant injuries to both of the top two teams. I think Portland will get a little bump from Anthony Simons this year. I think he's going to develop into a sort of a Lou Williams-y light kind of off-the-bench guard. Nasir Little was good value. Zach Collins came on at the end of the year a little bit. They have my favorite underrated player in basketball, Anthony Tolliver, at power forward, a guy who literally just bounces around from team to team every single year and shoots 42% as a stretch four. Can't play defense, doesn't rebound, but the man can shoot the basketball. You have Hassan Whiteside in a contract year, so he's at least playing for something. Nurkic, when and if he comes back and resembles his former self, also an interesting player in the middle, plus Gasol, but, Pa isn't Pa no more. So this boils down to Denver, Utah. And I love the construction of this Denver roster. I utterly love it. I don't love the way that they play. I think they play a little bit too slow, but I love the construction of this roster. Jamal Murray is an emerging star at the point guard position. Gary Harris is another of those wildly underrated players. Small forward is interesting. Maybe it's Will Barton starting rather than coming off the bench. Maybe he's keeping that position warm for Michael Porter Jr. to step into it, but there's talent there. Paul Millsap is the old pro at power forward. Now they have Jeremy Grant backing up that power forward position too, and I think that's going to be an invaluable piece because Grant's a super switchable defensive player. And hey, there's the center who NBA general managers voted as the best center in basketball just recently, and that's Nikola Jokic. So love this Denver team. Think we get a little bit carried away with the additions that Utah has made. Mike Conley's a nice player. He's not a superstar. He's not. Donovan Mitchell, we'll see how he emerges. If that three-point shot becomes more consistent, then we are talking about a guy who's in contention for maybe being the best shooting guard in basketball. But look, I'm just a lot of hypotheticals there. A guy has to go from like 34% to 39% for that to be the case. Okay, let's talk Donovan Mitchell. Do you have a problem with him, or do you not like him because of the thing with Ben Simmons?
Well, I think that started it, but honestly, as you watched him attempt to progress, this year this past year as the Jazz's like go-to guy, the guy doesn't have it. There's something about him.
What doesn't he have?
Like, he has these games where he'll score like 30 points on 45 shots and have like no assists. And there's something about his game that I can't figure out. And I don't know whether it's poor shooting or poor passing. I mean, if you watched any of those games where Team USA really struggled in the World Cup just a few weeks ago, down the stretch of those games, Donovan Mitchell was a detriment more than he was a help in those games.
Sure.
Costly turnovers, bad shot selection, disappearing on the defensive end. I mean, it was rough. Now, unlike you, I actually like the addition of Mike Conley and the Bogdanovich addition in Utah.
I do too.
I think that makes a big deal.
I like the
you also
Bojan thing.
have,
Just for the record, like the Bojan thing.
yeah. You also have, sneaky additions like a true backup center and Ed Davis for Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. Davis is a guy that grinds. I mean, I feel like he's on a different team every year, and he's just reliable to go in there and bang, pick up some fouls, pick up some rebounds. He doesn't necessarily have to score, but he shoots well for the shots that he takes. He knows what his role is, and he's a guy that just keeps going from team to team to team. You still have Ingles. You still have Moutier out there kind of rolling around.
What is that? What does that mean?
I don't necessarily know, honestly. He's a guy that I don't know if we're ever going to actually get the full potential of Emmanuel Moutier in the NBA, at least not in Utah. I feel like there's too many people ahead of him, especially now at this point.
There's one person ahead of him.
Sure. You got Mike Conley. You also have Exum. It's a whole thing.
Oh, Dante Exum is holding somebody back. No.
He's another guy. It's weird. It's like weird point guards that never made it land over in Utah. I
think it might be the career 32% 3-point percentage and poor assist to turnover ratio that's holding Emmanuel Moutier back.
Probably key. But I do like this Jazz team. I honestly think that the Nuggets are a tad overrated. I know Jamal Murray had a very, 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 very good year last year, but I need to see him repeat that performance. I mean, he was shooting the lights out during last season. As long as he can carry that over, then I'll believe in them a little bit more. Jokic, obviously, excellent. I don't necessarily like the Blazers as much as I think some people do. I think at a certain point, there's like a run its course type thing, and I think last year might have been that year. They made it to the Western Conference Finals, albeit fluky, whatever you want to say. It's one of those things where I think that core can only do it for so long, and we may see some fractures as we head into this season if there's not a fast start up in Portland. Or maybe I just wish that for all the Blazers fans that I know.
You're a great guy.
I have a lot of weird connections to the NBA or to the Northwest Division. It's very strange. I once sold a phone to Ed Davis in my old career.
I once robbed Nerlens Noel. So we've both had contact with NBA players in retail settings.
I had someone related to Paul Millsap text me once. This is a whole thing.
But for the record, any government agencies listening, I'm not admitting to a crime. I just forgot to give Nerlens Noel a copy of Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, how dare you!
I know. He brought an empty box. It was my first day at GameStop a long time ago. He brought an empty box. He brought one of the displays. I wasn't thinking. I was in awe that it was Nerlens and Michael Carter-Williams was there. And made a mistake. And came back to bite me in the tuchus. But, no actual crime committed.
That will happen. Someone continuously gives my work cell phone number out in the Atlanta area.
Cool.
So I just get random text messages all the time from people with their name and phone number. It's very funny.
To what end?
I don't know. I don't answer them usually, or I just say wrong number. But someone related to Paul Millsap may or may not have texted that number. So
how do you know they were related to Paul Millsap?
They sent their full name, and then I Googled that name, and then figured that this is the area that they live in based off of the numbers that continuously text me.
That is weird.
Very, very strange. Very strange.
Greg, I think there's a podcast in this. I think you should have long conversations and get to know all of the people who wrongfully text you.
I just want to know who it is that's the person that's giving the number out. That's my real thing. Because they clearly live in Atlanta, but for some reason give out a Philadelphia phone number. Or people just mess it up when they put it in. But it happens so frequently that I just can't believe it.
I've got a podcast idea that I had the other day I want to run by you. And this is free for anybody listening because I'm never going to get around to doing it. So I live in California. And, as you know, warm weather states like California and Florida are havens for homeless people.
Yes, they are.
I want to have a show where I talk to homeless people about how they got there.
Huh. Interesting.
Now, there are some issues, obviously.
Now, can I tell a quick story about a homeless person in California?
Do it.
So when I lived in Oregon, I had a cell phone number from Verizon because that's who. Well, I may or may not have had an affiliation with them in my past.
I think you've admitted to that.
Probably. Yeah, it doesn't matter because this isn't really a thing. Well, I changed my work phone number from a Philadelphia number to an Oregon number because why not? It makes more sense. I work in Oregon. Why not have an Oregon phone number and not have to answer questions about why do you have a Philadelphia phone number? Mm-hmm. Either way. I kept getting these calls and text messages searching for illicit items that I had to continuously turn away, as I was not the former owner of the phone who clearly had some sort of dealings in the underworld.
Sure.
So then one day I get a phone call. I answer it because at this point I'm fed up. I was getting phone calls every day. I was getting texts all the time. I can't take it anymore.
Why didn't you just change your number out of curiosity again?
Because it's just going to keep happening. The recycled numbers in the Verizon phone bank, I used to get creditor calls when I lived in Philly for somebody named Kelly who was not me, so it really wouldn't have mattered.
Come on, Kelly. Pay your bills.
Pay your bills. It's unbelievable. So I get a phone call one day, answer it, and I'm like, hello? And the person on the other end sounds very surprised. They say, I forget the name that they said, and I was like, this is not him. This is Greg. This is my work phone. Oh. This was my nephew's phone number, and he's been missing for some time, and I was surprised someone answered. Yeah, I'm not him. I apologize. So I had to go through and let this person know that I am not their missing nephew. Yada, yada, yada. And as sad as that is that somebody's nephew was missing, I kind of just thought nothing of it. That same number started texting me, making sure that I was not their missing nephew. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, yeah, no, I'm sorry. This is my work phone. Like, I really apologize. I guess the phone got recycled. No big deal. So like 3 months later, I'm at work, my phone rings. Again, I'm like, God, who is this? I answer, and the person on the other end goes, no way, somebody actually answered my old phone number. Huh. What's up, dude? I think his name was Josh. He goes, I can't believe they gave my old phone number away. I said, dude, I said, wait, how long did you have this phone number? He's explaining it to me. I said, where are you now? Like, people are calling looking for you, like family. He's like, yeah, well, one day I just kind of decided I was done with Oregon, so I decided to walk from Eugene, Oregon to San Diego. He's like, sure. I live in San Diego now on the beach. Oh. So that's how he got to San Diego, or got to, California as a presumably homeless person.
I have a lot of questions about this, but also, long story short, thanks to that little mishap, you now have a new family who you spend Thanksgiving with.
I do, absolutely.
Let's see, how far is Eugene, Oregon to San Diego?
It's that close.
That is 977 miles.
Yep. I'm assuming that the gentleman walked / hitchhiked all the way down to San Diego, and it probably took him some time.
Oh, I can only imagine. Like, I don't know. I mean, we see all these stories all the time about people like walking across the United States and all of that. And hey, it's a nice walk, especially if you stay towards the coast. I guess you always would have a place to sleep, though cops would be telling you have to leave all the time. With that said, if you stay to the coast, that probably goes up to like 1,100 miles.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
You got to think mountainous ranges in Northern California. There's not a lot of fun going on in this walk, I don't think.
I mean, I would like to hear more about it. But, yeah, I thought the other day, when I saw a particularly interesting-looking homeless person, I'd like to know their story. And, I happen to operate in a world where I get to tell stories for a living on shows, and maybe this would be interesting. A lot of issues come into play with it for anybody who's listening to this thinking, hey, that would be interesting. One, biggest thing I had, where do you record these things? If you're recording well, go ahead.
I was going to say, you could get like a digital recorder and bring it out with you.
Yeah, but then you're dealing with wind.
You find a non-windy place. Duck into a Starbucks. I don't know.
We want audio quality to be as good as possible. So you would have to, obviously they're not coming to Underdog HQ here. We'd have to have to rent a studio.
I'm not even allowed an Underdog HQ.
Well, that's because of your personal hygiene, and it's a decision that you've made a long time ago. But I respect it. No, but you're welcome anytime for the record. But yes, the homeless population of Northern California is not. And so I'd have to rent a studio, and then it gets to the point where, like, okay, how likely are these people to try and rob me? And then the issue is, like, how much can I trust of what's being said and how much of it is just drug-fueled nonsense? Not that that wouldn't be interesting, but also would it get repetitive when...
It may.
I don't know.
But I think everybody's story might be a little bit different.
A little bit, but I do think that the downside of being stabbed when somebody is looking for money for meth passes the upside of potentially hearing an interesting story.
It's a very good point, Chris. We don't want to get stabbed.
Especially not for meth. But look, I think we got off on a little tangent there.
A tiny bit.
Went in the wrong direction. Tying this back real quickly to the Northwest Division. I don't even know how to segue back into this.
Well, I guess really, like, with the Northwest, the question becomes is, did Denver hit their peak last year? I mean, finishing number 2 overall in the West, like, is that where that team tops out, or have they retooled enough and added enough to their roster, going forward, that's just going to give them the ability to continue to propel upwards and maybe get the number 1 seed this year? I mean, obviously, I think that other teams have sort of, in the NBA arms race, have sort of stockpiled a little bit more than Denver may have, and they're bringing back a lot of the same guys, whereas, teams like the Clippers and the Lakers really retooled their entire roster.
Yeah, and teams like the Lakers and the Clippers are also much more likely to go into load management situations than Denver is. The thing we're not talking about with Denver is I don't know that they necessarily have to quote-unquote retool or anything like that. This is a young roster of guys who can be expected to still get better, and that's, I mean, aside from Millsap, and that's not even counting Michael Porter Jr. So it's fair to say that Jamal Murray is going to be better than he was last year. Gary Harris is going to be better than he was last year. Nikola Jokic is going to be better than he was last year. And I do think that alone is probably enough to get them the top record in the West. Bovada has them at plus 1,100 and the number 6 most likely team to win the Western Conference. If I were putting my money on it today, I'm probably putting it on Denver.
I mean, there's definitely some serious value there. That serious plus money. Having Denver to win the Western Conference is definitely not a bad bet. I just think that they're a little bit more of a long shot, and they're definitely a great team. I mean, obviously they showed it. They also added, Bol. Maybe we'll see what that guy can bring to the table.
Two-way superstar.
Yeah, well, and obviously the Michael Porter Jr. question's huge for them. I mean. He's a guy that was, projected number 1 overall pick, and then all the back issues that kept him basically out for the year at Missouri, and then, all of last year. It's an intriguing team. I still think that as of right now, the Jazz are the biggest contenders for that Northwest Division.
By the way, thank God that Philadelphia took Zaire Smith instead of the redshirt option of Michael Porter Jr., because, that was... just great.
Chris, I don't think we want to get into my Zaire Smith views yet.
Yes, they are
too early.
Controversial. We'd have to throw up the explicit tag on the show. We don't want that. So look, let's take a break, figure out what the hell just happened, and we'll be right back.